On October 2, 1772, the great German thinker, scientist, and writer Goethe received shocking news. His friend Wilhelm had committed suicide due to unrequited love. Goethe was not only devastated by his friend's sudden, permanent departure, but also profoundly shocked by how similar Wilhelm's experiences were to his own. Goethe was deeply in love with a beautiful girl named Lot, but she was already engaged to another. Goethe's one-sided obsession plunged him into deep sorrow. Later, advised by friends, Goethe reluctantly let go of the girl. 2 years later, on an autumn day, the author visited Wilhelm's grave alone. In the chilly, desperate wind, he felt as if spirits from the graves were rising, almost consuming him. It was then that Goethe conceived the idea of writing down what he and Wilhelm had endured. In less than a month, he completed the story, which became the timeless classic novel we know today, The Sorrows of Young Werther. Immediately after its publication, this book caused a sensation across Germany, and for over 200 years, it has maintained its position as a significant literary masterpiece, continuously published worldwide. The Sorrow of Young Werther was not only the anguish of many Germans of that era, but even today, it mirrors the same pain many of us still confront. It is the pain of love, of work, of life, of the future, of the tormenting regrets from the past. These emotions constantly ravage the fragile human heart. In his work, the author wrote, "Your unhappiness lies in your broken heart, in your troubled mind. No one can help you erase that unhappiness. Some say life is like a vast prison, but the only one truly capable of imprisoning you is yourself. Today, we will explore this profound truth. The only one who can imprison you is yourself, through the renowned classic novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther." This exploration will allow us to directly confront our illusions and limitations, awaken to the truth, return to our authentic selves, and live meaningful, happy lives. You use illusions to imprison yourself. Young Werther came from a wealthy family, born into a turbulent society. He was disgusted with the world around him and felt that only by escaping to the countryside and immersing himself in the simple lives of working farmers could he save his soul. Thus, he decided to move to the beautiful town of Walheim. Here, he lived amidst nature, adored children, and fostered good relationships with the working class. One day, at a ball, Werther met a beautiful girl named Lot. Werther eagerly invited her to dance, recounting interesting stories that made her laugh like a blooming flower. Gazing into Lot's bright eyes, he was confident that he was destined to be the man of her life. But like a bolt from the blue, as the party ended, Lot told Werther, "I should tell you I'm already engaged. His name is Albert." Werther was stunned, feeling as if the sky had collapsed around him. In the days that followed, Werther tried to keep his distance from Lot but couldn't escape the illusions swirling in his mind. When people live in illusion, they love to overanalyze everything. Werther began dissecting how Lot had gently patted him during their dance. "She used more enthusiastic force than others when I held her hand. We looked into each other's eyes. Her gaze held happiness, just like mine. When her carriage, with her sisters, passed by, only she leaned out to look at me several times." After much deliberation, Werther refused to believe Lot didn't love him. He even prided himself on these deductions, and the more he thought, the more he became immersed in this infatuation and unrequited love. One day, the two happened to visit an ailing old woman in the village. Lot cared for her with immense tenderness and meticulousness, her eyes filled with gentle sadness. But Werther, standing beside her, felt that Lot was sad because of him. He was convinced her gentle gaze was directed solely at him. Back home, he emphatically told his friend, "She paid attention to my every gesture. Her eyes told me she loved me." Werther lived in an illusion, imagining passionate love stories, even a wedding, and a life together until old age. It wasn't until Lot got married that Werther could no longer deceive himself, but the result was his complete collapse. At this point, you might think this young man was excessively infatuated, almost delusional. I might like someone, but not to that extent. But what we're discussing here isn't what the illusion is about, but why the illusion exists. Everyone harbors different illusions, but ultimately they all stem from one core reason: we love only to fill a void within ourselves. Werther was no exception. His obsession with Lot was because they were fundamentally different. Lot was a kind, generous, gentle girl who always knew how to care for those around her. When a storm came, she hid her own fears, using her smile to comfort the other girls. When villagers were sick, she immediately visited and cared for them. What about Werther? He brought her some lemon slices, but when he saw her immediately offer them to her female friend beside her, he felt a surge of annoyance. Lot and her fiancé remembered Werther's birthday and gifted him a precious book he had always yearned for. Werther received the gift, feeling both joy and a bitter thought. This is a humiliation. I'm holding a gift from an arrogant man. What attracts us are often the qualities we ourselves lack. The book, Intimate Relationships, discusses complementary attraction. We tend to like people who resemble our ideal selves, that is, people who possess qualities we desire but don't inherently have. These qualities reflect our deepest inner desires and aspirations. You like a wealthy person because, deep down, you feel a lack within yourself. You are drawn to an energetic, witty person because you are quiet and reserved. You are attracted to a confident person because you perceive a lack of courage within yourself. You love a beautiful person because you wish to boost your own confidence in your appearance. This admiration extends beyond merely enjoying their presence. It's also a desire to be seen and valued for who you are. Admiring outstanding qualities in others is our unconscious way of seeking balance, filling ourselves through strengths we feel we lack. However, the universe always arranges for us to meet someone as a lesson to reflect and realize our true selves. But unfortunately, like Werther, we often miss this opportunity, ignoring the truth in order to avoid changing for the better. Instead, we try to protect our internally fragile self. And this is the true root cause of illusion. Loving someone doesn't create illusion. Illusion only arises when you are too deeply immersed, too attached to that feeling. Because you're consumed, you'll fabricate countless reasons to manipulate situations to your desired outcome. This could manifest as desperately trying to impress someone to make them love you more, or like Werther, loving blindly and unilaterally with only a fragile thread of hope. After becoming a couple, you begin to expect to possess that person entirely, becoming dependent on them. If that person leaves, unbearable grief and loneliness follow. In this state, it is very difficult to make wise choices, and one drifts further from the path they truly need to take. Similarly, one cannot truly love someone without the intention of clearly seeing the truth. One will fall into an endless internal spiral, using their illusions to recall past pains, living in emotional wounds, or endlessly fantasizing about good things to come. Ending one relationship, they will seek another person or activity to continue filling the void and lack within themselves. If you continue to live in illusion, the truth will remain buried forever. End illusions in relationships by first accepting your imperfect self. Ask yourself, when this relationship loses balance, why do I feel this way? What am I seeking from this relationship? Then, embrace your entire imperfect self. Identifying your limitations is the first step to growing and developing a strong inner core. This is also the challenge and lesson we must overcome. The more you run, the more you bind yourself. A few months after Lot married, Werther wrote to his close friend, William, "My mood is so heavy. It feels like all my strength has vanished." William, realizing Werther was unwell, advised him to leave town and find a job. Weeks later, with his friend's help, Werther began working as a clerk in a count's embassy. But at his new workplace, his boss was fastidious and extremely principled, constantly pointing out Werther's mistakes. The drafts Werther submitted were frequently returned without mercy. Furthermore, his colleagues made him very uncomfortable. There was a secretary who constantly bragged about her status and wealth, but Werther knew her father was only a minor government official, so he intensely disliked her and wished not to see her face. However, in the same office, he could not escape her presence. Werther's mood grew increasingly heavy. He constantly complained about his job, cursing the people who caused him discomfort. That day, finally unable to bear it, he wrote a long letter, bypassing his direct supervisor, directly to the Count, detailing all his dissatisfaction. "The people and things around me constantly stir my emotions, while I have so much work to do." Werther anxiously awaited a reply for weeks, but this letter brought no comfort. On the contrary, it worsened his relationship with the Count. The Count demanded Werther visit him frequently, but invited a crowd of nobles to humiliate him. The Count also assigned Werther the most difficult tasks, only to easily dismiss all his efforts. He knew Werther cared deeply about how others judged him, so he deliberately used cold words to provoke him. There is a truth. If you run away, no matter where you go, you will only find suffering. A person who uses work to escape emotional pain can go down one of two paths. One is to work frantically, ignoring their own health and true feelings, only to be consumed by work. The second type is like Werther, allowing a gloomy mood to affect their work, seeing dissatisfaction everywhere. Werther believed his sorrow was caused by others, not realizing that he himself was the architect of that suffering. When someone doesn't dare to face their own problems and keeps running away, nothing they do will go smoothly, just like Werther. He took this job to escape his love for Lot, but with a gloomy face and no interest in his work, how could he possibly perform well? When work isn't going well and the boss is dissatisfied, we often think the boss is being difficult, not realizing the problem lies within ourselves. In The Little Prince, there is a very true saying, "It is much more difficult to judge oneself than to judge others. The problem is always with others. I have no problems." When people are troubled, simply changing places or jobs won't make the troubles disappear. If the disease isn't treated correctly, it won't be completely cured. Therefore, do not use work as a refuge from pain. Learn to face, observe, and accept it. Pain is an unavoidable part of life, but only when we dare to look directly at it can we heal and move forward. When working, ensure that you are truly willing and take full responsibility for your job. Don't let emotions overwhelm you or run away from them. Only then will you not be trapped in the emotional prison you create for yourself. Internal conflict will drown everything. Months later, Werther finally succumbed to the anger and pressure within him, collapsing terribly. Werther's family could only let him quit his job and return to recuperate in the town he loved most. Back here, Werther felt an unprecedented sense of comfort and relief. He rode his horse to the clear blue stream amidst green trees, then strolled leisurely on the small road full of wildflowers. But the further he went, the more he felt something was wrong. He stopped and looked closely. This was the road Lot had once walked with him. In that moment, countless memories of Lot flooded his mind, driving Werther mad and making him yearn to see the girl in his heart again. That evening, he lingered for a long time outside Lot's house before finally daring to step inside. Lot greeted him very politely and warmly, playing a piano piece. But that cheerful melody made Werther unable to stop his tears. He told Lot, "Please, don't play anymore." After saying that, he turned and ran, disappearing into the misty darkness. It turned out that melody was the first song Lot had played for him at the ball when they first met. In the lonely darkness, Werther was tightly surrounded by painful memories. His ill-fated love for Lot, the humiliation from the Count, the disappointment with his close friend William, and his mother's despair. These things made Werther feel utterly defeated and powerless. His mind gradually lost its direction. He looked like a madman. Even Mr. S., who had once respected him greatly, said disappointedly, "You're beyond help. It's truly illogical." Werther let out a hollow laugh a few times, then repeated, "I don't know what I'm living for anymore." December 21, 1771, the second to last day before Christmas. Early that morning, Werther wrote a letter to Lot, then permanently ended his life. Why did Werther choose to end his entire destiny? Was it because of a heartbroken love that he couldn't overcome? In essence, looking at the nature of the problem here, not just with Werther but with many of us, when pain reaches its peak, it's not that all tragedies push us to the brink. It's because we cannot face our fears, we dare not acknowledge and overcome the deep conflicts within our souls. In fact, before meeting Lot, Werther had lived in contradiction, not only in love but also in how he perceived and positioned himself in life. Werther always considered himself an artist but never truly focused on it. He was enthusiastic about going to the countryside, where the beauty of nature and simple life enchanted him. He loved to feel, praise, and immerse himself in that passion, but forgot one thing: to actually paint amidst such inspiring nature. Why didn't Werther pick up his brush? Because he only saw painting as a way to prove his talent, not a true passion. Everything could distract him, leaving him no mind for it. Although Werther seemed to admire the natural lifestyle of the country folk, he criticized them for lacking grand ambitions. So what kind of life was truly suitable for Werther? When he took the job to escape love, the new environment quickly delivered continuous blows. He condemned the arrogance and superficiality of the nobility there, but in reality, the more he condemned, the more he revealed his own desperate desire to belong. When he was thrown out of a noble party, to hide his immense disappointment, Werther both scorned and yearned for the aristocratic lifestyle. In the book, Werther repeatedly mentioned how this person or that person admired him, whether it was a duke, a general, or a child. He liked Lot and her siblings simply because he felt they also liked him. If someone didn't admire him, that person was certainly annoying. Werther was like a person suspended in the air, unable to find any anchor for his life. The contradiction within him prevented him from living authentically. Therefore, Werther couldn't choose a lifestyle and dedicate himself fully to it every day. He couldn't be like Lot, the girl he secretly loved, who, no matter what happened, maintained her honesty, dedication, and purity. When a patient needed care, she cared for them. When sad, she danced. Life was simply that. Werther, his internal conflict and nihilism, made him collapse under emotional pain, living perpetually in illusion, in the eyes of others, and in painful memories. Werther once tried to detach himself, observing from a distance and telling himself, "You can't keep living as before, always brooding over what you don't have. You should learn to appreciate the present and let the past go with the wind." Unfortunately, when he tried to return to his true self, his heart was immediately controlled by desires and emotions, and he couldn't escape the quagmire of memories. In the end, he imprisoned himself within that heart, leaving us with Werther's sorrow. After reading the story of young Werther, each of us will have different feelings and reflections. But for me, Werther's tragedy leaves a valuable lesson. In this life, we need to learn to be authentic with ourselves. When facing love, do we truly love that person, or do we just want to fill the voids within ourselves? When facing others, do we live for ourselves or to satisfy their admiration and expectations? When facing work, do we do it willingly or for some other purpose beyond ourselves? Only by being honest with our inner selves, only by daring to acknowledge and confront the conflicts within our hearts, will we not imprison ourselves in an emotional prison. And only then can we live for the present, escape the pain of the past, find peace in our souls, and overcome sorrows like Werther's. I hope that in the remaining years, you can use a clear, authentic, and serene heart to peacefully face and escape all worries, live peacefully, and be true to yourself.